Annual wages growth in Australia has risen to 2.6%. That's the highest level since 2014. The Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, has been pretty cautious in welcoming these figures. He says he is aware of the challenges posed by the rising cost of living. This is why wages, productivity, job security, women's experience will be the focus of the Albanese government's upcoming Jobs Summit. Joining me live is the Employment and Workplace Relations Minister, Tony Burke. We've been talking about wages for a very long time, Tony Burke. Wages are actually going backwards at the fastest pace we've seen in 25 years. That's real wages. When is it going to get better?
Well, what needs to happen is we need to get wages moving themselves, and the intention is in the projections that Jim Chalmers made clear when he brought down the economic statement a few weeks ago in Parliament, is that if we get wages moving, you then get that crossover point as inflation starts to fall, where people's real wages start to move forward. I mean, that's the odd thing about these figures. First of all, is that in terms of straight wages, how much people are getting in their pay packet, it is starting to improve. It's still a long way off where it needs to be, but it's starting to improve. But it's against an environment where inflation at the moment around the world and here in Australia is soaring. So in terms of what that means in people's homes, it means exactly what you said. At the moment, people are seeing their costs rise faster than their wages, and we need to deal with both halves of that equation. And when you mentioned that you and I have been talking about it for a long time in terms of the need to get wages moving, we had a decade where it was a deliberate policy of government to keep wages low. Now we need to turn that on its head and have policies to get wages moving. You say that they're improving, but a long way from where they need to be. It's 2.6% at the moment in the last quarter. So how far short is it, in your view, inflation aside? Well, inflation aside, where you want people each year to be getting ahead. Like, that's the simplicity of what you want. But if it's not 2.6%, what is it? Is it 5%? Closer to that? Well, if you take in terms of people getting ahead, the normal metric that's there is long-term inflation. There's a productivity dividend of 1% on top of that. And so where the Reserve Bank Governor has said as sort of an anchor point, not a cap by any means, but an anchor point, he's referred to 3.5 as being your long-term sustainable growth if you have inflation in its normal bandwidth between 2 and 3%. Okay. So that's what the Reserve Bank Governor has said. The principle, though, that we want, the simplicity of the principle, is that we want people to be getting ahead of where prices are at. Now, there are some areas where there needs to be movement and faster movement. Women across the board tend to be underpaid, and the pay equity gap there is real, and that needs to be addressed. That's part of what we're doing with the aged care case at the moment, is trying to get a significant wage rise there for people working in the aged care sector. So there are some areas where for those workers the need for a pay increase is significantly above what you might look at across the whole economy. OK, let's look at the Jobs Summit, the upcoming Jobs Summit. Do you know what businesses are attending? Who have you extended an invitation to? And how did you decide in which businesses would be attending and which weren't? Yeah, Jim Chalmers is the one who's got full charge of the guest list, and so he'll announce that as we get closer to it. You always are going to end up in a situation where you have some people who could have made a fantastic contribution who aren't in the door when you're limiting numbers. It's one of the reasons why so many ministers have been holding roundtables in advance of the Jobs Summit that become part of the summit process. So I'm conducting a series of those myself, and right through to local members of parliament. Some of them have been conducting them in their electorate as well to feed those views in. In terms of who's in the door on the day, we do know David Littleproud will be there. He was invited and said yes. We know that Peter Dutton won't be. He was invited and said no. But you will see a big representation from business, from the union movement, from different organisations there as well. But you're always going to end up with some people who could have made a great contribution who aren't in the door.